A family is back together after 8 months apart, after a man seeking asylum in the U.S. is released from an Otay Mesa detention center.
As a Carlsbad citizen, I'm appalled that such a municipal code exists.
The city of Carlsbad considers relaxing rules that make public protests difficult. And a possible solution for the homeless crisis faces a roadblock in North County, why landlords are unreceptive. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Susan Murphy. A Salvadoran father was reunited with his 2 young boys in San Diego after 8 months in detention. KPBS Fronteras reporter Jean Guerrero has the story.
Jose de Mar Fuentes wept as he beheld his 2 sons for the first time in 8 months. Fuentes had just been released from a private Otay Mesa detention facility, wearing a GPS tracking ankle bracelet. 1-year-old Mateo, pulled from his father's arms by immigration officials in November, didn't recognize his dad. His mother, Olivia Caceres, tried to coax him into remembering. The reunification came just in time for a court-ordered deadline for the government to reunify all immigrant families with children under age 5. Andre couldn't believe his father was actually free. The family had tried to visit him at the detention facility on Father's Day, but was turned away. The ACLU lawsuit that led to the family reunification order didn't include children already released on parole to other relatives. But Fuentes' attorney, Erica Pinedo, says she thinks the order is having a far-reaching impact because her requests for release on parole were denied until she cited the order. She says the family suffered extreme and irreparable harm while Fuentes and the baby were detained separately.
When I spoke with the Office of Refugee Resettlement, they told me that they'd called the deportation officer dozens of times, trying to facilitate communication between Jose and Mateo, and that the ICE officer never returned their calls.
While the Trump administration has repeatedly said family separations were about law and order, Fuentes never broke any laws. He asked for asylum at the port of entry. The family traveled through Mexico together, but Fuentes and 1-year-old Mateo crossed the border first. After 1-year-old Mateo was taken from Fuentes, he was kept in a tender-age facility in Texas that has since closed for abuses ranging from inappropriate sexual contact to harsh punishment. That's according to a Reveal investigation. KPBS visited the family in Los Angeles shortly after Mateo's mom recovered the boy. She entered the U.S. with Andre a few weeks after Fuentes and Mateo crossed.
He's been really fearful. When he sees strangers, he thinks they're going to take him. He doesn't want them to speak to him or to come close to him. He just grabs me.
She says the boy was covered in lice and grime when the government returned him to her. The family's attorneys at Al Otro Lado say they will be working to consolidate the asylum cases in Los Angeles. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
City leaders in Carlsbad will consider changing the rules on public protests after complaints from a group protesting family separations at the border. KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says organizers say the city's response was intimidating.
When organizers of a demonstration against family separations showed up to a community park in Carlsbad last month, they were met with signs warning them that they would be fined and prosecuted if the demonstration went ahead because it did not have a permit.
The demonstration went ahead anyway. It unfolded peacefully with several hundred people lining the streets at Cannon Park calling for federal immigration policies to change. But the issue came up during a Carlsbad City Council meeting last night during public comment. Carlsbad resident Adrienne Durso told the council city codes violate fundamental free speech rights.
And I believe the survival of our democracy is dependent upon them now more than ever. This First Amendment right states to Congress that it shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the people to peaceably assemble. But somehow it was okay at some point for the city to pass CMC 817-200, going against our First Amendment rights. As a Carlsbad citizen, I'm appalled that such a municipal code exists.
The code referred to on the signs specifies hefty fines and possible imprisonment as punishment for going ahead with a demonstration without a permit. Other Carlsbad residents, like Dean Szabo, told the City Council the demonstration in their neighbourhood park made them feel uncomfortable.
If I had my grandkids in that park on the day of that event, I would have been very upset.
The city put out a tweet following the event saying it was committed to respecting people's right to protest.
Council voted unanimously to put the issue on the agenda for discussion, but the city has not yet picked a date, and it may not be till after the summer recess. Alison St. John, KPBS News.
San Diegans could be voting on an affordable housing bond in November. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says it was one of several measures that cleared a city council committee today.
The housing bond would raise up to $900 million to fund affordable housing for low-income folks and the homeless. Supporters of the bond measure say housing and homelessness is top of mind for voters, and now is the right time to ask them for the property tax increase that would fund the bonds. The Rules Committee voted 3-2 to forward the measure to the full City Council for consideration. Lauren Quinlan of the Corporation for Supportive Housing says more funding is necessary.
We know from our local data that short-term shelter and bridge housing has fallen short as a strategy because there's nowhere for people to go. If we don't invest in creating supportive and affordable housing at a scale that is impactful, we will never see progress.
The housing bond is not a done deal. It will need a 6-vote supermajority on the council just to be placed on the ballot. The council will also be considering a ballot measure to establish stronger civilian oversight of the police. That cleared the committee today, also on a 3-2 vote. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
6 San Diego County communities could get new air pollution monitors by the end of the year, thanks to funding from the state. iNewsSource reporter Nicole Tiao has more.
California lawmakers have budgeted $265 million this year for a new air monitoring program aimed at the state's most polluted neighborhoods. San Diego County is trying to get some of that money. County air pollution officials are recommending the state fund 25 air quality monitoring stations for Barrio Logan, Sherman Heights, Logan Heights, National City, San Ysidro, and Otay Mesa. These communities have some of the highest levels of cancer-causing diesel emissions in California. The county's goal is to use the monitors to measure pollutants at the street level. Officials are expected to announce in September which communities will get the monitors. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Nicole Tiao.
iNewsSource is an independent nonprofit partner of KPBS. 2 San Diego County supervisors are calling on Oceanside's Tri-City Healthcare Board to reconsider its decision to shutter its inpatient mental health unit. Supervisors Kristen Gaspar and Bill Horn say the region's emergency rooms will see a dramatic increase in overcrowding if Tri-City closes its 29 inpatient mental health beds. The Tri-City Board voted in June to shut down the unit within 60 days. California doctors and dentists who serve low-income patients are getting a boost in reimbursement payments as part of an incentive to expand access to health care. More than 13 million people in California are now enrolled in Medi-Cal, which offers free or low-cost health coverage to poor residents. But for many, getting access to doctors and specialty care has been a struggle until now.
It should be a huge boon to Medi-Cal access.
Dr. Ted Mazur is president of the California Medical Association. He says doctors were paying a hefty price to take on Medi-Cal patients because reimbursements were insufficient.
The problem with low reimbursement isn't that the doctors aren't making money. It's that the doctors and hospitals are paying out of pocket to give care to Medi-Cal beneficiaries who currently, with ACA expansion, make up 1/3 of all Californians. It's not a small population.
The new state budget is giving doctors a pay hike for nearly 24 services, including preventative care, psychiatric evaluations, and regular office visits.
The state has set, and we hope to get the education out there to make those doctors understand if you're not seeing Medi-Cal now, you should be starting to based upon these incentives. If you are, you should be able to see more patients because what used to be awful payments for these services are now more reasonable.
Part of the $2 billion in funding comes from Proposition 56, a state tobacco tax that took effect last year. Some of the funding will go to newly graduated doctors and dentists to help them pay off their student loans if they commit to practicing in underserved areas. It may be the next social experiment in California, free cash with no strings attached. Legal experts are looking at the merit of universal basic income in the state. The city of Stockton is already rolling one program out. City leaders are giving 100 residents $500 a month for a year and a half. Silicon Valley giants like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk say it will help alleviate income inequality. Some legal experts say the system is not sustainable long term.
It's one of those things that kind of sounds good in theory, but it's really questionable whether this is a good alternative for government assistance programs and high costs of living and poverty.
Policy experts say it's likely other California cities will follow suit with the experiment. Millions of dollars are pouring into programs to help homeless people find permanent housing. But even with subsidized rents and incentive programs, KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says the housing market is so tight that many landlords refuse to accept government-backed housing vouchers.
Casey Motes is a single mom who became homeless after back problems put her on disability. She spent weeks living in her car before finding a place to live. When she got money from a rental assistance program called Rapid Rehousing, she couldn't find a landlord who would accept the government housing voucher.
I called so many apartments, and nobody takes third-party checks, and that's what Rapid Rehousing is a third-party check. I guess Section 8 would be a third-party check also. They don't take them. Nobody takes them anymore.
The waiting list to get a federally subsidized Section 8 housing voucher is 8 to 10 years. Rapid rehousing is much faster, but finding a landlord who will accept it could take months.
Then I found one apartment before this one that did, and they wanted me to make 4 times the amount of, $1,650. So 4 times, if I was making 4 times that, I wouldn't need help. I'm a single mom, so it doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Landlords hold the keys, literally, to who gets to rent an apartment. And if you're a homeless person, it's sometimes hard to find a landlord who's willing to take a chance on you.
And a lot of landlords figure, why should I take the risk, or why bother taking the risk when I have such a large pool I can go, pick from.
Yeah.
Eddie and Nancy Walker manage the Quince Park Apartments in Escondido, where Motes finally found a home. Because the rental market is tight, the Walkers could simply refuse to consider renters who've been homeless, but they don't.
I guess is what Nancy and I stand for. We believe that everyone is entitled to a second chance. Circumstances in life happens. Sometimes it's no fault of your own. But if you're earnest about it and come to us and sit down and full disclosure and tell us about your situation and stuff, Nancy and I usually go by, after they leave, what's your gut?
Walker says 90% of the time they get it right, but not always.
When Nancy says they didn't pay or I know they didn't pay, I'll first have what I call a come to Jesus meeting. And we sit down and say, okay, what's going on? And then listen to what they have to say. Because the bottom line is, this is still a business. And the owner is in it not to be philanthropic all the time, but he's in it because it's an investment and it's a business. So therefore, and the bottom line is you have to pay your rent.
Yeah, you can't live here for free.
But the Walkers know that if a renter has a Section 8 housing voucher, that could cover as much as 3/4 of the monthly rent.
If they aren't paying, you're not going to have to go after them for all the rent. You're just going to have to go after them for maybe 1/4 of the rent or something. So you have that much guaranteed. So that is a plus. It's definitely a plus.
Both the city and the county of San Diego are offering landlords incentive programs to encourage them to help house people who are homeless. Some programs, like Rapid Rehousing, offer the security deposit and several months' rent. Other programs offer landlords the security of up to $5,000 if their place is damaged.
Because for the most part, they're great, but once in a while you get somebody and, oh my gosh, you're really eating it because they have destroyed the place.
The San Diego County Housing Authority says fewer than 5% of participating landlords have ever had to use damage mitigation money. But the Walkers wish the guarantee was more widely available, even if they don't have to use it. The city of San Diego is now expanding damage mitigation guarantees from veterans' housing programs and is offering it to landlords who work with anyone who was formerly homeless, plus contingency funds for unexpected rent delays.
Well, we're repainting the whole apartment, including the ceilings, because the prior resident smoked here, and so we've got to redo the ceilings and everything else. And we're going to brighten the color up. It's going to be more of like an eggshell, color.
Walker says paying landlords incentives and the security of a regular government-backed rent check is one thing. But from his perspective, the most important thing is when a tenant comes with a recommendation from a caseworker.
I think it's very important because if you have a difficult, let's say, veteran or anybody in the system, and you sit down with a caseworker and you have a family meeting, so to speak, then we can talk about the issues and what the problem is, and then come up with a plan.
Moat says she got help from a caseworker at Interfaith Community Services in Escondido, and that helped her keep going when nothing seemed to be working.
It's so sad, like you don't understand how depressing it is to know that you are given this help and you're given this chance, but you don't have that, you don't have any apartments anywhere that are willing to help you. And it does make you feel like you're failing as a parent, and it's very depressing. But I was lucky to get here. I'm extremely happy to be here.
The city of San Diego has earmarked $6.6 million over 3 years to encourage landlords to accept housing subsidies. The goal is to find 3,000 permanent homes for families who are currently homeless. But so far in the first year, just 263 landlords have signed up. Alison St. John, KPBS News.
A new report shows hate crimes in California rose by double digits last year, jumping 44% over a 3-year span. San Diego County saw a similar troubling trend in 2017, with a 13% rise in the number of hate-related offenses. Deputy District Attorney Leonard Trin says a majority of cases in the county were against Hispanics, Latinos, and African Americans. He says a portion of the uptick can be attributed to recent immigration policies and the proximity to the border.
Most of the crimes that I've prosecuted so far this year have been the assaultive variety, but I have seen vandalism type offenses. I've seen the harassing phone calls, the stalking-ish type of behavior as well. So those tend to be the majority.
Nearly 120 hate crimes were reported in San Diego County last year, and so far this year, more cases have been prosecuted than all of last year. Annual Pride festivities kicked off at San Diego State today. The rainbow flag was hoisted at a ceremony in front of the Student Union. As in years past, an SDSU delegation will participate in this weekend's Pride Parade that's scheduled for 11 a.m. on Saturday. SDSU has been recognized as one of the best schools for LGBTQ students. Best Colleges and Campuses Pride recently ranked the university 11th among the top 25 best colleges for LGBTQ students.
Tonight on the NewsHour, we are on the ground in Brussels as President Trump unloads new attacks on European allies. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Temperatures are slowly dropping tonight. Morning fog and light showers are expected in parts of San Diego tomorrow. Julia Wyden has tonight's full forecast.
Hey, here's a look at what's going on as we go through the next few days. We're starting things off with your weather headlines. Up first, been hearing a lot about that monsoonal moisture. It's mostly been in place over the Four Corners region, but we are getting some showers and some thunderstorms to occur in the higher elevations and on into the high deserts. Now, coastal cloud cover, that's going to be making a comeback for tonight. It's going to bring those low clouds and even some fog to folks who are right up against the coast as we get a little bit more of an onshore flow to occur. Desert areas, you are going to be seeing that threat for rain decreasing over the weekend. And as a result, your temperatures are going to get hotter. Here's your satellite and radar imagery. And again, there's all that wet weather out over the Four Corners. Around here through Southern California, you're seeing again that band of moisture up in those higher elevations and into the high deserts. But coastal spots are protected from that. You'll be staying dry. So tonight, in San Diego, we're looking at temperatures dropping down to the low 70s. Again, with that onshore flow, we'll get that marine layer to cause low cloud cover and some fog. Here's a look at the area for tonight all around the county. And again, you can see folks farther to the east will be dealing with showers and thunderstorms. Temperatures will mostly be in the 60s to low 70s for lows. As we head on into Thursday, it's more of the same. A lot of that moisture is bringing sticky humidity to folks, again, up in the higher elevations. I think we'll be running pretty normal when it comes to temperatures around Southern California. Let's check in on those highs. We'll be around 80 degrees in San Diego, Chula Vista 79, Oceanside 82. And taking a look at what's happening for these next several days, temperatures at the coast will remain in the low 80s, each morning starting off with fog, then breaking and giving way to sunshine. Farther inland, temperatures are going to be in the upper 80s Thursday through the weekend. A little cooler on Monday in the mid-80s. Your mountain forecast Thursday, showers and thunderstorms. Then high pressure will settle in for the Friday and for the weekend. High temps in the low 80s then. And into the deserts, it will be in the low 100s, coming up to 106 to 108 for Friday and the weekend.
Believe it or not, people use math every day, from balancing budgets to cooking and shopping. In tonight's Sci-Tech Report, reporter Chris Duell shows us how it all adds up at a new exhibit in San Antonio, Texas.
So this exhibit is To the Extreme, Math Alive, and it's an exhibit that features all of the math underneath the things we love to do in our everyday lives.
It's all about nature and science and the culture that is math and the people that are behind it, and also the math elements that you don't even realize you're implementing every day. So here we are in the exhibit, and you start off with this wonderful SciBot Friends, and they're going to take you through all of the interactive elements of the exhibit, kind of show you all the math elements behind this stuff that you do every day. Cool. Let's go.
So in border cross, the real challenge here is to figure out just the right angle for your snowboard to not only make the turns you need to make, but also maintain your speed. Because the steeper the turn you're making, the more acute the turn you make, the more friction you're going to have that slows you down. But you also need to stay on the course. So there are some turns you have to make.
So this is a great area too, because you have Ramp It Up, which is all about skateboards and the type of optimization that you need to do your tricks. So it's a really cool interactive basis where you have this video, you can learn more about that. This type of interactive here is all about like civil engineering. So that's the great thing about this exhibit, is that it's all math oriented, but math applies to so many elements. Here you get to make a building and you get to learn about the ratio of the weight and the width, and you can make roller coasters, all sorts of fun things like that. And it kind of applies how those math and civil engineering type of applications are used, and it kind of highlights the whole family's things that you may not understand or realize that math was behind it. That's what's so great about this.
This interactive exhibit demonstrates the math behind motion pictures by freezing and creating a 360-degree panorama from a single moment in time.
In this particular interactive, you can also, while you're here, cut out half of the cameras. So in this 360 shot, there are 20 cameras around this top ring. They all take your picture at the exact same time. And then the computer puts those together into a video. So it looks like one camera panning around while you're frozen, but really it's 20 still shots making a movie. And then when you're looking at it on the screen here, you can actually cut out half of those cameras. And when you do, it starts looking really different. So a tessellation is an infinitely repeating pattern with all of the parts in that pattern fitting together perfectly. There's some famous art, especially by M.C. Escher, that uses tessellations. And here what we have are these really cool mirrors and shapes that you can use to build your own tessellation. And if you get down at the right level, you can actually see what it would look like infinitely repeated.
Whoa.
So here we are at Flickr Fusion. It's definitely a favorite for all the families that come here. And my favorite, because I love The Nightmare Before Christmas, and I am so interested how that stop action motion happens. And Sarah does a great job of explaining it for us.
So when we animate something, our eyes are taking in several pictures at once. And when it's going fast enough, more than 24 flashes per second, it's so fast our brain can't tell separate images apart. They actually use this a lot in any sort of movie or animation. And when it goes that fast, it starts to look super smooth and you can get a really cool image. And here with Flickr Fusion, you can control how often the light flashes, how fast the platform spins, which gives you the really deep understanding of what speeds things need to be moving at to trick your brain into believing it's smooth live action.
So when kids and adults come to the Witty, especially in this exhibit, what's really cool is they may not realize how much they're learning. They go through and all they know is they're having a great time. They're making memories, they're getting like all of their wiggles out with all the family, but then when they walk away, they actually are thinking about all the things they learn, and they may not realize it. And that's what's so great about education here, is that you're learning with everything you're doing. If you're designing a video game in here, you're implementing math, but you're playing a video game. That's awesome.
So we brought this exhibit here really to help tell that story of nature and science and culture here in Texas, and how these things are part of our lives.
You can find more stories like that one on SciTech Now, Sunday nights at 5:30 here on KPBS. The Math Alive exhibit is on tour. It makes a stop at the California Science Center in LA next year. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, some of the country's biggest energy companies are trying to figure out how to store the power. The Planet Money podcast visits one of the world's largest batteries. And a special midday edition show on what it takes to buy a home in the Golden State. The California Dream, one state unaffordable. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.